Hi everyone, welcome. Today we're going to talk about navigating through the pandemic and beyond. A story of perseverance and vision. And I have with me Ian Kok, the Managing Director of Niro Ceramic Group, the leading global tile manufacturer. Now, Niro Ceramic has usually been around for more than 40 years and has a legacy in this tile industry. And as a global company, it has succeeded in sort of preserving the Swiss heritage of consistently delivering high quality products and services to its customers despite numerous expansions and breakthroughs. And Ian himself has been appointed as the managing director of the company somewhere early 2020, I think, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And this was just as Malaysia was being hit by different waves of the pandemic. And so Ian has responded to the challenges. He's helped sustain an established brand despite a lot of the uncertainty. And he's also been involved in the numerous parts of the operation, from manufacturing, logistics, sales, and also has overseen different operations in Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, and even Spain. So Ian, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for enduring with us and being with us and giving us some of your wisdom and insights. I just wanted to start by asking you, very broadly, tell us a bit about your journey into Niro Ceramics and how, when did you join the group? How did you become, how do you get to this point of leading the organization as the managing director of Niro Ceramics?
Okay, first of all, Roshan, thank you for the introduction and all the kind words. I've been with the company for 17 years. I joined Niro Ceramics in end of 2005, and at that time, when I came in, I joined as the Chief Operating Officer, and I was responsible for a few of the key functions like manufacturing, operations, right, as well as sales, right. And at that time, I still remember we were only in 3 countries, right? We were in Malaysia, Indonesia, and China. And a lot has happened since, I would say, right? It has been quite a ride. It has been rough at times, right? But generally, the company has grown. Yeah, the company has grown, and not only in terms of financials, but also in terms of brand and reputation as well.
And I want to talk a little bit about that growth. How it happened, and what were some of the sparks or some of the sort of triggers that enabled you to grow in the pace and in the scale that you have over the last couple of years. But I want to talk a little bit about leading during a pandemic.
Okay.
Because it has been very challenging over the last couple of years, and you had to lead this organization, Niro Ceramics, through this last couple of years. In fact, you came in the middle of the fire, right? Just as the pandemic was sort of buzzing away, you took over as a lead. So how did you manage to enable yourself to grow, scale, and get success despite all the numerous changes, obstacles, and issues that the pandemic caused?
Right. Actually, Roshan, and I'll be totally honest about this. It was scary. Yeah. The lockdown, happened, if I recall correctly, right? It was March 2020, right? And before that, we were already receiving news about, the COVID and how it was spreading all over the world. And frankly, for me anyway, I did not anticipate that the government would react as quickly as they did. Yeah. And so when the announcement came about, right, that there was going to be a lockdown, right, we were worried, me and my senior management team, right? But it was also very clear to us that we've got responsibility towards, all the people that work in this company, right? In Malaysia alone, we've got over 600 people, right? And overseas collectively, right, we have a staff strength of about 1,006. Yeah. The things that we were very focused on was on working capital management, right? Because in a situation where you are not making any sales, and what that would mean is that you will not be collecting any money as well, right? So that was the initial focus, right? How do we balance between preserving our working capital and at the same time managing our expenses, right? I think it would have been too easy to say that, okay, we'll just cut people away, right? But that would have been a little bit too drastic, right? Because it was anyone's guess at that time. How long will this lockdown be? And you do not want to be in a situation where when the country or the government lifts the lockdown, and then suddenly you are paralyzed, right? Because you don't have enough people, and certain functions are not running.
Yep.
Right. So we kept our ears and our eyes very close to what was happening, because every day there were announcements from the government on what you can do, what you cannot do. We were very active with the Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers, whom we are a member of, right, to understand how we can try to optimize a very, very dire situation. Yeah, it was fortunate that the government allowed exports, right, and that at least assisted in generating a little bit of revenue for us. But by and large, right, we kept the senior management team very closely informed, right? Communication was something that was paramount, right? So that as many of the staff as possible within the organization knows what management is trying to do, right? What are the challenges, right? And to look forward to each day as it comes.
And I mean, were there different things that you had to do? I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, you had to communicate different, you do all these things differently, but were there specific strategies or specific sort of practices that you had to change, or rituals that you had to implement to enable yourself to continue to be sustainable, to be somewhat optimistic in spite of all the issues
Sure.
and the challenges that were in front of you?
Actually, when the situation was a bit more stabilized, I think this was probably like 1 to 2 weeks after the lockdown, right? We already started reaching out to our customers, right? And obviously, it was through technology, right? Through video meetings, and I'm glad that as a company we were quite well prepared, in that respect. And we started reaching out to our customers, informing them, right, how we can still support them, because they were also back at work, right? And even though there were no sales to be made, right, but in our business, we do planning together with our customers for their future projects, right? So we was introducing products through video, right? We were still sending out quotations, right, and proposals, right, and drawings, right? So I felt that was very, very important, rather than to just be totally quiet, right? Internally, of course, right, we took quite fast steps, right? In terms of cutting off the those really unnecessary expenses, right? Things that we could live without, right? And making sure that as far as working capital is concerned, we were talking to our banks, right? To assure them that these are the things that we are doing, right? And we gave them some projections, right? I mean, I think it was absolutely important, right, to communicate on your current status, right, and that you have a plan in the pipeline, right? Telling a good story was probably unrealistic, right? But I think all our stakeholders wanted to be informed, right? Yeah, on the things that we were doing.
Right. And I always believe nothing ever prepares you for leadership, except storms and tribulation. Really, you got to step up, and it's sort of kind of like gold being refined by fire, somewhat, right? And I'm sure over the last couple of years, as you stepped into this leadership role right in the middle of a fire, or saw a storm, so to say, there were some interesting leadership lessons or insights that you may have garnered over the experience that you had leading in this pandemic. What were some of these things that we can learn from you, and potentially also be able to enable us to be applying into some of our own workspaces?
right? In a circumstance like this, Roshan, I will reset myself back to the values that we've incorporated in our company, right? Um, and being authentic and sincere, right? Uh, I think that is really important. Uh, we communicated to all the staff on the situation, right? And it was not a matter of trying to make things look better than what it really was. I think most of the staff appreciated that, right? We did tell them that, look, if this thing continues indefinitely, right, chances are, there will be some attrition, right? But at the same time, I assured them that management will take every step necessary to try to avoid such an eventuality, such an outcome, right? Uh, I I made sure that we remembered what is our goal, right? What our plans, right? What were our strategies, right? And of course, meanwhile, keeping the staff occupied, right, was also motivating, in that sense. Yeah, we conducted a lot of trainings, right, albeit via video. We were trying to look for ways to upgrade their skill and their knowledge, right, just to be sure that everyone keeps fit. Yeah, mentally, right? They keep fit, and to always give them the encouragement and the hope, right? That we are going to try to fight this to the best of our ability, right? And actually, fortunately, Roshan, right, that 2020 lockdown was about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, if I recall, right? And after that, the business started to come back, yeah, and it started to pick up again. Of course, 2021 is another story. That was something, if you talk about not expecting 2020, 2021 was totally unexpected, and it was a much longer shutdown, right? But fortunately for us, right, after learning from the experience of 2020, we also approached 2021, right, with the same persistence, with the same energy, right, to give encouragement and hope, right, that their livelihoods will be looked after. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. And I'm very curious, you kind of were parachuted into this position somewhat. You were there, but you came into this leadership position. When you look back on hindsight, right, were there things that you did prior to stepping into this role that enabled you to be prepared, that enabled you to be able to make the right calls and to be able to communicate right and to be able to understand and be empathetic towards the employees, to be able to understand their perspective and enable you to then also work with the customers and understand the significant challenges of what this pandemic was going to be unfolding. What were there things that helped you, or just had to learn on the fly kind of stuff?
I would say it will be a little, it's a little bit of both, Roshan, right? Because I've been in company for 17 years, and I've been in various leadership roles within the organization. So I'm very familiar with most of the people that work in the company, both in Malaysia and outside of Malaysia, right? And all these years I've developed a working relationship with them. So communicating with them, right, was already very much part and parcel of my responsibilities during that time. Of course, in that 17 years, nothing like, it never prepared anyone, right, for this pandemic where suddenly, you're talking about zero sales. That was scary, right? Yeah, you're talking about not having any revenue at all, right? That one I was not prepared. I was not prepared for, right, because it was not something I've ever seen, right? But getting the support, from my team and engaging with them regularly actually also helped me, even though I'm in a leadership position, right? Because there were times when I required the encouragement myself, right? And I needed to also be heard, yeah, when I speak, right? So it was not all top down, right? It was a good, I would say it was a good mix. My senior management team was very supportive,
Right.
and we encourage each other, right? And we
Yeah.
gave hope to each other, right? During this
And,
time.
I mean, you make a very good point. Like, you also need to be encouraged, right? I mean, leaders
Yes,
need to be encouraged, and
yes,
sometimes it's lonely at the top, somewhat lah. I mean, ultimately, the responsibility of the buck stops at you. What were
of
some of
course.
the things you did to enable yourself to be somewhat, motivated yourself? I mean, because it's hard to expect, employees or your reports to be able to motivate you, or to be able to push you and encourage you. What were some of the things that you did to enable yourself to consistently, understand that ultimately, you have so much responsibility, but you also need to lead, and you need to be calm, and you need to, be able
Yeah,
to take the organization forward, right? Not backwards, right? In spite of
yeah,
all the issues.
yeah. Well, Roshan, I mean, I've got a board of directors, right? And of course, we speak to each other quite regularly, and the support was also coming from the board. But I guess, for me, the bigger part was the fact that I've got this responsibility, and I know many of my staff, and I know many of them personally as well, right? Even people that works in a factory or in a warehouse, right? And that made me, it basically made me feel that I've got this huge responsibility which I've got to see through, right? That this was not the time to let them down. This was not the time to give up, right? And 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 I would say it's the staff themselves that gave me the energy, the stamina, right, the perseverance, right, to play my role in trying to look after their welfare, the company's welfare, and my own as well. Right? I would say that it was probably the prime mover for me.
Fantastic. And as we sort of wrap this up, I know leading in crisis or leading during challenging times is, it's very contextual, right? I mean,
Yes.
the issues and the challenges are all very different, and you have to personalize it. You have to understand the context, and there are many different sort of decisions you have to make that may be different depending on the organization and depending on the country and the culture. But I mean, if you were to think about sort of high level insights or leadership sort of insights that you could leave our viewers with, some of the lessons you learned that may be applicable across the board. What were some of these key insights or lessons that you can take away and you can share in terms of leading in a sort of maybe post-pandemic world, now that all these things have sort of happened, but it's still a lot of transition that's happening. We're still in IR4. We're in the middle of a physical world changing into digital, and biological changes happening, and a whole bunch of other transitions are happening. What does it mean to lead in this post-pandemic
Right.
world?
I would say, Roshan, some of the things that have taken place right during the pandemic, I mean, it's just like, this interview we're doing it via video. That has become a normality now, right? I think there are some things that have changed, right, which will likely be very much part of our daily habits, right? Uh, the embrace of technology, right, it has been really underlined, right, via the pandemic, right? And I think for organizations and people that are responsible for making decisions for organizations, right, the embrace of technology must be, right, one of the key strategies of any organization. As you highlighted just now,
Yeah.
you talk about IR 4.0, right? I mean, for Niro, we've got manufacturing, we've got distribution, right, and we're in 6 countries, right? not leveraging on technology would be an impossibility to survive, right? It's not just a matter of not doing so well, but to survive, right? You need to have technology supporting the business. For us as a company, right? Even as we speak right now, we're at the final stages of implementing a new enterprise resource planning system for our group. We have been and we continue to look for ways to introduce automation into our operations, right? Especially those that are either labor intensive, right? Or those that are extremely repetitive. And, this is going to be very much part of our business plan year on year, right? And speaking about technology, Roshan, I would also like to say that, for Niro now, we've got our own retail outlets, which we call Creative Lab.
Wow.
Okay. And we've got 40 of these outlets now, right? And we basically sell tiles through these outlets, and it's not the traditional huge showrooms, where you have to do physical mock-ups of a kitchen or dining room or bedroom, right? It is a relatively small footprint, right? But we use technology to try to sell the tiles, right? Yeah, we've got a very, very powerful design software. And for any homeowner that comes into our shop, you just have to sit next to our designer. You look at, you can look at the wide range of our products in high definition, right? And all you have to do is to tell us the dimensions of your room and your color preference, right? And we will drag and drop, and you can see a 3D image, within minutes, right? So this is an example of how we are using technology to change how we compete, right? And I think it's very, very interesting, right? Yeah, because especially, in an environment now where labor cost is increasingly high. And not only that, you may not even be able to get workers if you want to, right? So the embracement of technology is inevitable.
Fantastic. And I,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think businesses that do not embrace technology will go by the wayside. Very interestingly, there is a study done by Iceland and Leaderonomics on a white paper actually on companies and some of the best practices that companies adopted during the pandemic. You can click the link below and be able to check out that resource or download that resource. But Ian, I want to sort of close this up by asking you what's next. You're in a couple of countries now. What's next for yourself and Niro? How do you scale? Do you go to the next level? Do you conquer the world? I mean, what's next, and how are you thinking about this? How are you thinking about the next stage of your personal development and also Niro's sort of growth?
We've got a 3-year plan, right, which was introduced in 2021, and we've got very clear milestones on what we want to achieve, not only for ourselves in the company, but obviously for our board and for our shareholders as well, right? By and large, these are financial milestones, right? We do see, many opportunities, even currently in the markets that we operate. We are not looking at conquering the world, right? But we are looking at the potential that this company can achieve, right? With the people that we have and the markets that we operate in. We are eyeing a IPO probably next year. Okay, and this is something that we've talked a lot about, especially in the last couple of years. So I would say that building the brand, right? Being able to provide, high quality tiles, beautiful tiles, right? And in the process, making money, right, for the organization that provides this, right, would be our goal in line with our 3-year plan. Yeah. And obviously, as we near the end of this 3-year plan, which expires in 2024, right? Then we will come up with the next, right? I think the operating environment today, right, probably will not enable talking about a 5 or 10-year plan, even though it's nice to talk about that. But things are changing so quickly and so frequently, right? I think having a definitive shorter term plan probably makes more sense.
Absolutely. I think sometimes 1 month plans are even tough to in this day and age, right? With all the different changes. I want to close up by asking you for a piece of advice. Many people will look at you and say, I want to be like Ian, but they're kind of in or university or just graduated, right? And they want to say, I want to lead an organization. I want to grow it. I want to scale it. I want to be successful, like, and do what you've done with Niro. What sort of advice would you give a young person who wants to succeed in life, who wants to make a difference, who wants to, go out there and do something interesting and important, right? What advice would you leave them?
My first advice would be to definitely go into a business, right, where you either have an interest in or you think you can develop an interest in, right? I think that's key, right? And the next step would be to roll up your sleeves and to learn. As many aspects of this business as possible, right? And when you do that, not only do you improve your own skill in either running a department or division or company, but along the way, right, you will be building relationships. Ultimately, any organization is still made up of human beings, and getting people to be aligned, and the ability to be able to align people, to me is the most effective way of improving an organization, and also, right, to give yourself the satisfaction of success.
Ian, thank you so much. It's been absolutely riveting speaking to you. We've been speaking to Ian Kok, the Managing Director of Niro Ceramics Group. Ian, thank you again, and look forward to catching up with you in the near future too.